said something really interesting about serotonin. She said that serotonin actually has more receptors in the gut than it does in the brain.
Yeah, 90% is synthesized in the gut, whereas like dopamine, or maybe 30% or so is synthesized in the gut because it's in the gut, the brain, and retina. So a lot of these transmitters are important to understand their hormonal effect because in the gastrointestinal walls, so like when Regina talk about gut brain axes, and you have what's called the enteric nervous system, and that can operate autonomously without the central nervous system input, but it does impact. And so this gut brain axis is an important bidirectional communication between the brain and the gut. And so that's why a lot of these chronic conditions are even associated with gut brain microbiome kinds of issues
Yeah, so
or
maybe one of the
dysbiosis.
things we can talk about as our crowd starts to gather together is that if you have a tummy ache, you have a brain ache. If your gut is messed up, then your mind could also be messed up because obviously if there's neurotransmitters that are either being produced in the gut or are being what word did you use? Not assimilated, but
Synthesized.
synthesized. Well, synthesize means to create. I'm thinking when she says there's these receptors for serotonin, that would tell me it's more about an uptake site.
Yeah, and it's produced there. So you have 95% between the synthesis and production. That happens for serotonin in particular in the gut, whereas others, they can be synthesized in one area, like I say, the dopamine, synthesized there 50% or so, but it's produced in the brain, retina, and the gut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they all match a different kind of receptors. So like a lot of times, and you're spot on, if you have a tummy ache, then it's going to impact, the energetic capacity that your brain has. It's putting a lot of pressure on the brain basically to operate optimally, but some of that energy is now compromised. The same thing when you're stressed out. If you notice when you're stressed and you try to eat, you feel like you get this lump in your throat because you don't have all of your gastrointestinal power to actually digest food. Your body's in a sympathetic reaction mode.
Interesting.
So yeah, so all these things kind of impact each other, but this is why I think Regina's work is important because in my mind, this is a tension management perspective. Whenever you talk about the interconnection between the physical, mental, and emotional, but the medical school, they don't teach you that aspect. We learn diagnosis.
Yeah, well, that'll be part of Regina's story, won't it?
Sadly, yes.
Because
But
obviously, because people are starting to arrive. It's right at the top of the hour, and our Thursday calls, people tend to get here between the top of the hour and 5 minutes after. So give them a little bit of wiggle room, because while we've invited a lot more people to today's call. Usually, our Thursday calls for the Circle of Brilliance are really kind of more of a group of colleagues, and so there's a more of a relaxed kind of a tone, and we talk about all kinds of interesting sorts of things. But today we just thought this topic is so important that we decided to invite a lot of other people. So we'll see who shows up. We're obviously recording this, and so we'll put this one up on YouTube. And Regina, I'll send you a link to it that you may do with it as
thank you.
please.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I think that's the one thing I'd like to make sure that everyone walks away with is that Regina's going to be talking about the absence of symptoms, but maybe it means that the symptoms that we're looking for are more symptoms that are going on in your emotional state, in your what I want to say, I don't want to just call it mental health, because that to me doesn't really kind of encapsulate what I'm looking at. But yeah, anyway, that's where I'd like to see if we can.
You can maybe call it underestimated symptoms.
Oh,
symptoms that we easily just can push aside and keep going.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, let me go ahead and label the call and we can just get into it. So, hi, everybody, it's T. Falcon Nape. You're welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today we have a special conversation with Regina Fasselt. I'll let Regina introduce herself because if I told you everything I know about her, we'd fill the whole hour. So, but suffice to say, I've known Regina for a very long time. She is fully certified as a ChangeWorks professional, so she knows all of our stuff, but far beyond what she's learned from us or worked with us on over the years. She's got a lot of other things in her background. And so Regina, what you want to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and share your background?
Yeah, thank you so much, T, for having me on the call. And I just, some of you, I don't know who is here, but I would assume most of you know who I am from our prior calls when I was an active ChangeWorks professional. And maybe let me start right there. There was a time when I had to stop, when I sadly came to the conclusion I need to retire. And that was probably 4 years ago. And then I pushed it another 2 years until I said to T, I have to make changes. The one thing that I know I need to do now is I need to stop working. And I call it, I retire, and I left it at that. So from my background, for those who don't know, I was a former executive back in Switzerland, then became a psychologist, still in Switzerland. Then I moved to the United States and became an executive coach and opened my coaching firm for Soul Global Consulting. That is when I became certified in ChangeWorks. And T and I, we worked a lot together. Some of you on the call maybe were also on some of the teams. And we were having a blast, I could say. We were working with the large global corporations, doing executive coaching, leadership development, and change management with these companies. And it was so much fun. And I was at the top of my career then when this picture, for instance, was taken. And I wish I still look like that. That was 10 years ago. It needs updating. I was 52 at the time, really thriving at the top. Finally had the success working with the companies I wanted to. It was everything I ever dreamed of. Did I work hard to get there? Yes, absolutely. But that's my type. I can work day and night and I just keep going and I don't need breaks. I'm superwoman. You know how that goes. Anyways, and then the day came. I had the biggest assignment I've ever done with one of the largest global companies. And it was also a prestige assignment and a very short time frame, 3 weeks. I worked for the chairman of the company specifically with all of his entire executive teams. And after the 3 weeks, I finished in time, but went straight to the hospital. And what put me in the hospital was an acute onset of diverticulitis. And up to that day, I had never heard of diverticulitis. I was healthy, I was strong, I was able to do everything. Yeah, I did have headaches every day, but that's normal, isn't it? And yeah, I did have back pain too, and an upset stomach every now and then, but nothing really serious that I was on medication or that I was diagnosed with anything. Long story short, then I ended up in the hospital on IV antibiotics for 5 days. And in the middle of the night, nurses came to my bed, woke me up, and they asked me if I was safe at home. Like, yeah, I'm safe at home. So the hospital staff was trained to check if women coming in with diverticulitis are in a safe environment. And I didn't understand it, but obviously diverticulitis has a lot to do with the amount of stress, with the amount of cortisol. in our bloodstream. And me living the high thriving, high achieving life in my biggest, most famous assignment, had enough stress that my gut said, nope, we're done. So diverticulitis is a severe inflammation of the little pouches in the gut, and it can rupture. It didn't in my case. And I was let go after 5 days. Pain was resolved, and I was told to just eat easy digestible food. And a couple of weeks later, I went back to my normal life. And that was the beginning of the end. Still stressing. And at that time, I had a company with employees. I worked with associates. I had an office manager. I had a personal assistant. I had people around me every day. I had the responsibility for these people. At least that's what I felt as a business owner. I needed to bring in more work so they could really thrive as well. And I kept going, and then started having stronger symptoms. My headaches became migraines, turned into daily migraines. Thankfully, they started at 3 in the afternoon, not in the morning. So I still got a good amount of work in and just did not stop. Doctors couldn't find anything. Everything was okay with me. Nothing to diagnose, just take it easier. Then the next symptom came, and the next, and it was simple things like, oh, now I have allergies, seasonal allergies. Where does that come from? 50 years, no allergies? Here they go. Mm-hmm. Then I started having food allergies out of nowhere. And there is a time frame of 1 to 2 years that this developed. And it got stronger really fast. And then the fatigue set in. And it began to feel like every day I had to just push harder and harder just to get myself going. My head was still racing. I wanted to do, I had things to do, but my body couldn't keep up. Mm-hmm. And then the breakdown came. Then one day that complete adrenal fatigue breakdown was there. And all the way up to that point, I was tested for all kinds of things. Thyroid, I gained weight, no thyroid was normal, no reason for the headaches. They just couldn't find a single thing. And I was literally falling apart at the seams. And once the burnout hit, I still couldn't get help because burnout is not an official medical diagnosable illness. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It doesn't exist as such. But it's horrible. It just upends who you are, what you're doing, and you can't move anymore. Maybe there are people on the call who've experienced this, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you know what I'm talking about. The hardest thing then is to come back from it without help from, again, physicians, because it's not a diagnosis. It's just, well, take it easier. And at the same time, while I was trying to recover, I did shut my office down for a while. I had to let the people go. I took a break for 6 months, and until I could just to start crawling again, far from getting up and run and go. But I never closed the company fully. So as soon as I was a little better, I started working again a little with more help from the outside. But that didn't make a difference much because my body was still getting worse. And so in that process, Yeah, go
let me
ahead.
just throw this in. So while all this is going on and physically you feel yourself falling apart, but they can't come up with some label about what's wrong,
Mhm.
did they start to think that a lot of this was psychological or was driven because of psychological issues, mental health issues? Like it's all in
They
your
never, yeah, it's all in your head, yes. Well, they never said it quite like that, but there was also an incident that I suddenly had blood clots
Mm,
and was sent to cancer specialist, hematologist, and he happened to be a German doctor, and I'm Swiss. We're both very direct nations. And so he was very direct with me. He looked at my blood work, the results, and he said straight to my face, "You're a type A personality. You just need to stop stressing. That's the only thing that's wrong with you.
mm,
Just relax. There is nothing wrong with you." However, my blood work showed that I had autoimmune disease.
mm.
My autoimmune marker, ANA, was positive. And the doctor, his words were, "Oh, autoimmune, just forget about that. You're just working yourself up and you're working yourself to death. And you just need to change how you approach life. And I can refer you to a psychiatrist, or I'm a trained psychologist." So he didn't say psychologist. Um, and I said, "Thank you, I hear you. And I will consider, I will really take a break and I will make changes." And that was the end of his treatment, basically. He
Mm.
didn't put me on blood thinner, just for a few months until I was in the safe zone again. But yeah, to answer your question,
Mhm, mhm. And
a lot of doctors looked at me like that, like, it's in your head. Oh, and then I got asthma out of the blue. The allergist, "Nothing wrong with you, Miss Fossil." He didn't say it must be in your head, but I saw it in his eyes.
so how did you come to the realization that this was really a gut health issue?
So when I had the burnout and was really not able to do anything anymore, I I was also done and upset with the non-existent advice or warnings uh, around my medical my doctors,
Mhm, mhm,
and I just felt I was let down. I felt I was getting sick and sicker with symptoms for 2 years, and they keep telling me everything is normal. And at that moment, I decided not to believe that any longer. That this is normal, how you to feel like that when you're in your early 50s or getting older. There's nothing to worry. And in addition, I also knew I don't want to accept it, period.
mhm, mhm.
I'm just not that type. And I started researching. And it didn't take long. My research led me to Dr. Terry Walls, a physician who was diagnosed with MS early on in her practice time. And it was progressive MS. It landed her in the wheelchair. She had to stop practicing medicine. But all the while, she and the team of doctors around her, from around the Cleveland Clinic, had researched uh, what the causes would be for autoimmune, specifically MS in that situation. But long story short, they figured out the cause for autoimmune, for all autoimmune in general, is a severe inflammation. The cause is inflammation, and it begins in the gut. So this is how I first was introduced to if you have symptoms that nobody can help you, there's something wrong in your gut. And that's how I started then to research more, and I became a trained certified functional medicine health coach then, just to heal myself. I never intended to work as a health coach. It was just for myself to come back from everything that I had. And by that time, my autoimmune disease that the hematologist um, gallantly just ignored was diagnosed as Hashimoto's by not a medical doctor, a regular Western doctor, but by a functional medicine doctor. And the difference is a lot of medical doctors who are sick and tired to just prescribe a medication for a symptom because they know my patient comes back in 6 months, in a year with the next symptom, and then I can give them only this. I can't bring them, I can't go back and turn back the time and help them heal. Those doctors have become functional medicine trained, and functional medicine looks at the source of why something is happening in the body. So they're going back, looking back at where is it starting? Why is this happening? And how can we stop it? So that's how functional medicine works. Most practitioners are medical doctors, and that includes, I think, nurse practitioners are allowed to go through training in the United States at least, and chiropractors, all these more natural medicine related doctors who are officially recognized in the United States are allowed to become a functional medicine practitioner. And I'm not a licensed medical doctor in the United States. I became a functional medicine health coach. I'm working with the practitioner and their patients, or at that point, clients, because insurance doesn't pay any of this.
And so as you started to focus on the gut as being where all this was coming from, you shared with me earlier that it's issues going on in the gut combined with stress. And so
Yes.
is that pretty much the formula, that it's because of cortisol and inflammation, and the stress is making the inflammation worse, and the inflammation is being aggravated by what people are eating or not eating, as the case may be. So I guess I'm just trying to put this all together, because I think what you're describing is something that the vast majority of people that all of us work with as clients and all of us as individuals are probably dealing with. But just like you said, it wasn't at your level of awareness when it was all unfolding. It's probably not at our awareness either. Nevertheless.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You summed that up.
And maybe we're lucky because it hasn't progressed to something as severe as what you've had to deal with, but nevertheless, we could be on that same road. So.
Well, to that point, I would say I am the lucky one, because my symptoms were severe enough that it led me to become active. So my threshold was reached, because I had all these symptoms that made it so difficult to just get up and live a normal day, let alone work. I couldn't use my brain anymore. My brain couldn't think or remember anything. So I am the lucky one. And the reason why I say that is it was so bad, it forced me, not just my driving nature, it really was the point that I either shoot myself now or I do something about it. And a lot of people, and that is scientifically researched, and proven, and there is a team of Harvard, Brown, and two or three more universities who are researching in the field of functional medicine. So looking at the sources, why things are developing. The research is from Harvard Medical researcher. His name is Alessandro Fasano, Italian. This team found that specifically gluten is undigestible to the human being. And it's one specific protein in gluten. So in all corn, grain, everything, and it's zonulin. And in grain and corn, there are about 80, 90, 100 different proteins, but this zonulin will destroy the gut. And that in combination with stress will poke holes into your intestinal lining. And that is when the disaster begins.
Is that what leaky gut is all about?
That is what leaky gut is. And I was lucky. I had very painful symptoms from leaky gut. The rest of the human being population, the majority does not have any symptoms that they recognize until they have a disease like rheumatoid arthritis, cancer. I'm not saying there is a direct correlation to cancer, but it can lead ultimately into cancer.
Right.
They need a new hip, just diabetes, all the immune diseases, all of them are anchored in the inflammation and the leaky gut. If people don't have any symptoms they can hold on to that they recognize something is wrong, they would never think they need to fix their gut, especially if
Right.
they feel their digestion is absolutely perfect.
Right, and they're not really being encouraged by the popular, medical approaches that are out there to even think about that. It's just
Absolutely not, and that is a big problem.
So I'm really curious to know something as you've learned more and more about gut health and the relationship between gut health and mental states and energy levels and all that sort of thing. Do you look back over any of the clients you've had over all these years and just go, their problem was they had a messed up gut biome?
Oh my gosh. I think almost all of them.
Yeah, well, because that's what I'm kind of trying to kind of get around to for everyone who's listening to the call and all that. It's kind of like the way that this gut issue manifests itself is not just with a tummy ache. It's or whatever the physical consequences are. It has an effect on your energy levels. It has an effect on your mindset. It has effect on your mental state. So how much of depression is really because your belly is upset? How much of anxiety is being triggered because your gut biome is out of whack? So that's what I'm just thinking. It's like all these mental health issues may actually be gut health issues that are presenting themselves in a very unfortunate way.
Yeah, you summed it up perfectly. And in functional medicine, we know that if someone comes with anxiety or depression, fix their gut. And it will get better. It will take time, but it will get better, and it will eventually go away. And to that point, autoimmune diseases are in the Western medical recognized world not curable. I have healed 2 autoimmune diseases, and I have healed asthma. And all this by fixing my gut, by changing how I feed my gut microbiome, what I eat, what I avoid to avoid inflammation, I got rid of all inflammation. I was able to heal my gut microbiome, to build it up, have strong, healthy, good biome microbes and bacteria in there. And with that, my brain came back and I can think again and I can work again. So to that point, I'm coming out of retirement.
No, well, good. Yeah, because pardon me, we've heard these kinds of phrases all of our lives that you are what you eat, or that you should let food be your medicine, and medicine is food. So it's like there's
Yeah.
always been kind of an awareness, but that awareness has not translated itself into behavioral change.
Yeah.
Another thing we've talked about in the past couple of years on the Circle of Brilliance is this idea that ultimately neurotransmitters, any of the neurochemicals, hormones, whatever it is, these are the most powerful drugs, if you will, ever to exist. And these things are going to very much run your brain as they appear in what we call, whatever your bowl of neurochemical soup happens to be, right? And so the thought was always, there's no reason to talk to people about whatever their depression is all about, or their anxiety, or their frustration. Talk therapy, it's not going to be all that effective until we can get someone back to balance in their neurochemicals. In that, well, you've added another element to it now. It's kind of like, yeah, but the way we get our neurochemicals back where they belong goes back to our food. And Brian was saying earlier that so much of the neurochemical soup that we all deal with is actually either originates in the gut, or it's actually activated in the gut, or that's where it gets into place. So by the way, everyone, this is a conversation. So I'm happy to Regina. We talk all the time. So if you guys have
I'm just going to chime in real quick to stress the importance of what Regina's talking about here, because I think when I last checked, there's over 180 autoimmune conditions, or conditions categorized as autoimmune. And to Gina's point, they all share, from my own research, because I suffered from pernicious anemia as a lifelong vegetarian, which is a vitamin deficiency. And when I researched it, they all share the same three triggers: nutrition, lifestyle, and gene. So gene expression. But if you think about what Regina's talking about in terms of the importance of understanding the gut, and if you think about the system, the communication system known as the gut-brain axis, you're talking about a system that communicates between the gastrointestinal tract and the central nervous system. So it plays this key role in maintaining homeostasis. So we're talking about balancing, how threshold of activation and tension aspects. So plays a key role in maintaining homeostasis, influencing well-being, and some of those key components of it, if you think about it, is this ENS system. So the enteric nervous system is in the wall of the gastrointestinal wall, but it also the vagus nerve, immune pathways, microbiome metabolites, hormones, transmitters. So imagine the homeostasis part, with your system being out of balance between the communication between what you're eating and digesting and working these systems, it can throw everything off. So when people aren't eating well or feeling well because they have not eaten, there's some downstream things that need to be looked into. And oftentimes, again, from a pathogenic perspective that you're taught in medical school, you don't understand that. What Regina's offering is salutogenesis. We don't learn salutogenesis in medical training. Salutogenesis literally is the creation of health at the metabolic, the cellular, and the regenerative area of health. Like, what creates health? So when you're talking about 2/3 of the world's planet suffers from metabolic conditions, 2/3 of the world's population, diabetes, obesity, these are all metabolic or dysmetabolic kinds of conditions. So when you understand things at a metabolic and a cellular level, you really get to understand what's going on inside, how you feel, and how tiredness is an indication psoriasis, eczema. These are
Mm-hmm.
not just symptoms, there's something going on underneath.
Right. And so let me throw something out there just for everyone who's listening right now. Moving into a plant-based diet seems to be all the rage. And people seem to think that if they move into a plant-based diet, they're all of a sudden going to be healthy. But keep in mind that in a plant-based diet, gluten is readily available, and
Mm-hmm.
so is sugar. And so these two things are probably from my knowledge, the two of the greatest contributors to inflammation there is. So you can't think like, okay, if I give up animal products, I'm therefore going to be healthier. You might be healthier by certain metrics, but it's not going to get rid of what Regina is talking about and what Brian has been talking about as well. So you guys want to comment a little bit about it's not just about changing the categories of what you eat. It really is specific
Yeah.
things.
You have to do the quality, because for me, again, pernicious anemia is a vitamin deficiency. I was a preemie baby. I was 1.7 kilos at birth. And they thought that I had diverticulitis as I started to get older and grew a little bit. But kids don't typically get diverticulitis. And so it wasn't realized until later in life that, yeah, you're not getting enough B12 and folate. In fact, I have what's called a weak intrinsic factor, which is the protein in the gastrointestinal wall. Mine almost does not exist at all. And so I have to be very careful in terms of what I put in my body. Like, I could not drink beer in college because the hops will send me to the hospital, literally. And that's vegan, if you will.
Right.
So when these diets become our identity, we create problems, because most vegetarians and vegans have a problem with getting enough B12 and folate, because it's more bioavailable in meats. You can still get it in plants. So it's that kind of understanding. You can't just take the diet as an identity. You have to really introduce yourself and understand quality going in matters.
Right. And I think one thing I want to throw out, then, Regina, I'm curious to have you weigh in on this. I don't want anyone to think that this discussion about gut health and its relationship to mental health is trying to tell anybody that everybody needs to stop eating this and start eating that. There are certain things that are very more common than others. This isn't about that. This is about having an awareness that there is a relationship between what's going on in your gut microbiome and what's going on throughout your body, and in turn throughout your life. And so rather than trying to take a pill to fix something, or going through some extended therapy sort of program, maybe you need to stop eating Doritos or whatever it is that happens to be the trigger for you. So, Regina, talk a little bit about how it's not the same thing for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is different and has different needs and different genes for that too. So like Brian had mentioned, gene expression is also part of a critically important part in why people get sick or stay healthy. But even if we have a gene, it does not mean that we get the disease if we balance the rest in our life. And to do the best possible for our body. And even when you've been sick and diagnosed in the end, like I was, I think a few things that UT and both Brian used that are critically important to remember. We need an awareness that it's not normal, that when we have headaches, we're fatigued and just sluggish, and it gets difficult. Even if the doctor can't diagnose anything wrong, we need the awareness. This is not normal. I need to look deeper. I need to think about what I might have to change to feel better. And with that comes knowing that it is possible. we don't have to feel like that. It is possible to feel better, to get symptoms um, under control without heavy medication. I am not just completely healed, I'm also completely free from any medication. And I'm 62 now, and I'm stronger than ever. I ride a massive, big horse, and I train with this horse in the Florida heat, 100 degrees out there, and I go show this horse. I could not have done that 10 years ago, or 15 or 20, even when I was 40 and still feeling like, yay, I can do it now. Coming back after all. So it's a lifestyle that we have to think about, the awareness that it takes a lot of little details. And the one thing that I also want to repeat what Brian said is, when diet becomes our identity, we create a problem. That is so true. That's a big problem when people become, oh, I'm a vegan, I'm a this, I'm a that. I can say I can be very open and honest about this. I'm not something specific, but in order to heal, I had to get my blood test and find out what my body is reacting to with inflammation. And at the worst of my time then, my body reacted to gluten very high, all corn, all wheat, all gluten, to lactose, including casein from cheese, to coffee, eggs, and all of these things caused more and more and more inflammation. So I had to go stop eating all of that, which I did. And within weeks, I felt better and better and better. But still, there was a lot of learning, a lot of fine tuning to do. And you can't sustain yourself on heavy restrictions. So there's a learning path
I was going to say,
involved.
changing one's diet is simultaneously the easiest thing you could do and the most difficult thing you could do.
Exactly.
Because food is
Yes.
comfort. Food, we have a relationship with food. It's not just fuel for us, it's other stuff. In fact, yesterday when Regina and I were talking, I said, okay, you're European. We love going to Europe. And when we go to Europe, the thing that we want to eat is really good quality bread and really good quality cheese. And so if gluten and dairy are bad things to eat, how does Europe survive? And so I threw out the question, well, is it because Europe also tends to eat smaller quantities to begin with. They don't have a tendency to, I know that's a generalization, but culturally, they don't have a tendency to overeat.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
The portions are much smaller.
Right. And the food quality is much higher.
Yes.
And so you might, and it does have a lot of good fruits and vegetables that are in it and things like that. But I just said, what's beyond that? What makes us as a population more susceptible to these gut issues and the consequences of it versus Europe? And and I thought, is it processed foods? What's going on? So Regina, kind of share what your thoughts are. And then Linda, I see you've unmuted, so feel free to chime in.
Well, I just wanted to say, I wanted to confirm what both Brian and Regina were saying, because approximately 2 to 3 years ago, I got this horrible rash, and I went to several doctors. It lasted months, and they just said, there's nothing wrong. And they tried to give me things, and it never went away. And then finally, one day, it was gone after months. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the hospital with horrible pains. And then, well, but nothing's wrong. And so I came home, and that was the next year. And all these hints and all of these, I mean, if the doctors would have said, this is a warning sign. Now I'm looking back, I can see that your body's trying to tell you there's something wrong. And I ended up with T, and you can tell this part of it, T, because I don't remember it, taking me to the hospital in last October.
Yeah, in fact, let me just give everyone the quick story of what happened to Linda, because I think it's something that people really don't believe could ever happen. But Linda was
Absolutely.
basically, she was running the dust mop in the kitchen like everyone, does. And she leaned the handle of the dust mop up against the wall, turned around to do something, and the handle slid off the wall and smacked her on her big toe. Next thing you know is she's got a lot of inflammation around her toe. So they put her on some antibiotics to clear up the inflammation. Those antibiotics ended up destroying a great deal of the healthy bacteria that's in our gut biome. And so then they tried to give her something to fix that and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, Linda ended up with an extremely serious case of C. difficile, which is one of the nastiest little critters that can ever take over your gut biome. We all have it. Every living organism on Earth has a colony of C. difficile growing in their gut, but it's the healthy bacteria that keeps it at bay. When all that healthy bacteria got killed, Linda ended up absolutely unaware of who she was and where she was. This is the middle of the night. She can't make a sentence that in any way it makes any sense whatsoever. We called the paramedics, and she ended up spending a week in the hospital with very high doses of specific antibiotic that targets C. difficile. Well, then they told her the real tough part, and that is that her gut microbiome has been completely destroyed, and now she has to rebuild it. And rebuilding the gut microbiome takes months to years to achieve. And so
But they didn't tell me how. They just
they
let
didn't
me
say
out of
how.
the hospital, just
It,
like Regina said. We
yeah,
can't, we're just working for the hospital, just eat right.
yeah,
That's all.
that's all you
And
can do.
then I just, by a wonderful happening, Regina and I talked and she said, I'll help you. And so it's been 8 months now. I still have severe fatigue. My brain doesn't work, but it's getting better. And I just look forward to it getting better and better and better, just like it did
Yeah.
Yeah,
Regina.
and let me share one
And
of.
you will get there again, Linda.
Oh yeah,
Like we said many times, it just takes a
take
Yeah,
long
time.
time. Patience
I
and
know. And
And
keep
that's the
going.
hard part for a person. I'm just like you. I want to go, 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 go.
and of course, they've already told Linda that the next time anyone suggests her taking an antibiotic for any reason, she's got to let them know that she's had this problem with C. diff, because it changes everything. It's very likely to come back with a vengeance, with even what we might consider to be routine antibiotics. So it's a big deal. The other thing that we learned, and this was interesting, they sent in a professional. I don't know what her actual designation was, but she was focused on nutrition. And the question came up about, should Linda be taking a probiotic supplement? And the professional, she goes, well, you can take them. They're not going to hurt you. But if you look at what is actually inside of the probiotics that you can buy, it's a tiny little set of probiotics when your gut actually needs hundreds, if not thousands, of different bacteria strains in order to have a truly healthy, balanced gut biome. So not bad to take them, but don't think that they're going to take care of everything. You got to think about, where did that bacteria come from when you were born, when you were growing up? It came from the food that you ate. Or the dirt if you were a kid at eating mud pies, but it came from outside of your body. You ingested it. And so it takes a long, long time to rebuild the diversity in your gut microbiome, even under great circumstances. So I guess I'll throw it back to Regina and just say, as you comment on whatever it is you feel like commenting on from everything we've just been rattling off about, give people a real idea about how long it actually takes.
Yeah, I was going to
So
ask if Georgina can actually speak to that aspect of tension management in between the time, because a lot of times when I'm interviewing
in
people,
terms of
there's
how long this takes, or
yeah, just like staying the
let me
course,
just
like let
back
it
up a
naturally
little bit,
work.
and I'll get to this question in just a moment. To to the point of antibiotics, while they are life-saving, like in Linda's case with C. diff, I ended up in the hospital twice on IV antibiotics, so it saved my life twice.
Yep.
If you will. The harmful part is antibiotics kills all the really nasty gut bacteria in our body, so it saves our lives, but it also kills all the good ones.
Yep.
And so it does not take an IV round in the hospital. Every person who has to take an antibiotic, just like a 10-day amoxicillin or something like that.
Yep.
Typically given three tablets a day, one morning, afternoon, in the evening. In reality, your first day, you start with amoxi. By the evening, your gut microbiome is destroyed.
Oh,
3
wow.
tablets are enough. And then you'd still take it for 9 days.
Yeah.
So it takes 1 day to destroy all the good bacteria. And it takes just after, for a small round of 10 days of antibiotics, it takes at least 3 months to 6 months of rebuilding that gut microbiome with the right food, with the right diversity, with the right lifestyle changes, including stress management, sleep management, and psychological hygiene. Because another key to remember is if we are sad, angry, jealous, all these thoughts that cause us to feel bad, they have a direct impact on the quality of our gut microbiome. Just one thought, one unhappy, bad thought a day can destroy a big part of the healthy, of the good bacteria. So we have to really clean up our act on all levels if we want to have a truly healthy gut microbiome. Plus, 70% of our immune system lives in the gut. And that is another reason when people don't have a strong and healthy and resilient gut and microbiome, then they get sick faster, and every virus that comes along knocks them off their feet. So the stronger the health of your gut microbiome, the healthier you will be in the long run.
Let me add something to what you just said there, Regina. This idea about that these thoughts people have, these feelings that they have, can destroy their gut microbiome. Yeah. Just imagine watching the news or just going online and seeing what's happening in the world. I don't think people realize that it is having a detrimental effect on your gut biome, just being exposed to those kinds of messages.
Yeah. No, people have no idea. Yeah. And then they expose their children to being bullied online. And we now see a tendency that younger and younger and younger people are suddenly diagnosed with severe autoimmune diseases. And when I say younger, in their 20s, with diabetes, with MS, with autoimmune diseases, with Alzheimer's even. Yep. The diseases of the old people are now being found in the young ones in their 30s, starting in the 20s, a lot more in the 30s, and I mean almost an epidemic now in the 40s, where those were the years that people were still healthy. The body did still keep up with it. Like, I'm doing a new website, and I just wrote there, I was lucky for 30 years, or I got away with it for 30 years. That does no longer exist. People don't get away with it anymore. And I mean, social influences on people are killing them.
Well, right, because, obviously the brain doesn't know the difference between a situation that is real and a situation that is vividly imagined.
Imagined.
And so when we hear these negative stories being told, we absorb that negative energy. It has an effect. Our brain doesn't realize that it's just a story we're listening to, or something that we're watching on a video. As far as our brain is concerned, it's happening. And so it's going to have the same kind of responses. I was reading recently that they believe they have figured out why there's been a huge uptick in the incidence of colon cancer, I think it is, among young people. And their thought, or that what they've identified, is a particular amino acid, I think it is,
amino acid,
that's inside of energy drinks. And so as energy drinks have become more and more popular, people are getting more and more of whatever this is. I want to say it starts with an L. I don't remember offhand, lutein or something like that. But nevertheless, you're going like, okay, stress is a problem. So why don't we take a mega dose of caffeine? That'll help our stress. And then let's throw in whatever this other ingredient is that's aggravating it further. And so I think it's pretty fair to say that we've been on a path of killing ourselves for a very long time, but it's accelerating greatly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Imagine those kids. I think about this all the time. The kids in the Ukraine or the Hamas, Israel, like their cortisol levels, right? They're living through this. And so if you think about cortisol, it gets a bad rap oftentimes, but it's a stress hormone that regulates metabolism, immune responses, stress responses, is produced in the adrenal cortex. But elevated cortisol levels, particularly consistent, it can affect gut permeability, immune function. It could lead to alterations in the gut microbiome and even potential dysbiosis. And so now you have these compounding issues from just being exposed in an environment. And this is, again, why I don't think it's mind-boggling how corporations don't understand the impact of stress has in terms of being within a poor working condition where there's toxicity in the environment. Because now, again, the World Health has categorized burnout with an ICD code. So you can now be treated for burnout.
Oh, yes. This happened recently.
Regina needed that 10 years ago.
I don't know if she will want the medical establishment treatment of it because, she's on the more natural
I don't know.
path.
Well, right. Well, and by the way, we're getting to the top of the hour, so let's get to the beyond description into some kind of prescription sort of thing. And so, Regina, I know you've shared that this is really a very individualized kind of a thing, but are there some general things? I mean, what do you think people should do if they are feeling like they're living without answers? Nothing that they seem to be doing is working. I mean, what should they do?
That's a big question. Fix their gut.
All right.
Would be my strongest recommendation. Fix the gut.
Obviously, engaging, a functional health coach. There's obviously lots of resources that are out there, but have you guys identified maybe 3 or 4 things that are general enough, frequently encountered enough that you just say, look, if you just made the following few changes, these things in and of themselves would have a positive impact?
Yeah, there's 3 things. I think you think from a lifestyle perspective, right? Like the physical aspect, the mental and emotional. If you can eat well, move often, you're going to create what's called a salubrious environment. You're going to create an environment condition for well-being. So just start there. Like eat well is going to mean different things to different people, but you'll know, like if you fall asleep every time you eat, something is off. Because food is supposed to energize your body, right?
So I'm not supposed to take a nap right after breakfast?
Because you probably ate too much. Because think about it, like when we eat, when we talk about hormones, when you eat, and the stomach starts to stretch, you're releasing a hormone that's going to tell you when to stop. That's why even if someone goes to a buffet, at some point you're going to get full. That's hormones at work, right? So we, again, if we choose not to listen to these things, or if they're imbalanced, then we're putting ourselves in a dysbiosis and a dysmetabolic state. So again, moving well, eat well, and do it often, I think is a key to start.
So well, on the as far as
Absolutely.
the eating well part of thing, and Regina, I want to make sure I give you the final say on all this. But if you just said to people, look, what we know for certain is that sugar is a major contributor to inflammation. We know that dairy is something that a lot of people can tolerate, but it's not intended for humans. That gluten, as you've already said, nobody processes gluten fully. And so if we could just, for a moment, reduce on our way to eliminating those three things in our diet, might we feel a little bit better?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every change in diet towards a healthier version will make a difference, and the body reacts very quickly. And I don't want to say leave this out, leave that out, but in general, like Brian already said, if you focus on what you can improve with nutrition, if you focus on the healthier versions of what you might know you shouldn't eat, you're already making the first step. And getting, I would call it growing healthier, takes time. And since we're all addicted to what we're eating, what we're doing, our habits, it takes the time for the body to and the brain to get the new message and to make it easier for us. Once we make the changes, the brain will react to it immediately. The hunger hormones will die down. The other hormone that tells us we're full will grow. And we're not thinking about food and all this addictive food all the time. So the healthier we get, the less of these thoughts we have. And we can achieve that very simple by a simple change. Switch out one thing that you know on your list should not be there with a healthier version. And I mean, it's always good to check with a diet with a nutritionist.
But it
if
has
the doctor can't help.
Right, but it has to be a nutritionist who understands this whole relationship between, right?
Yes,
Gotta be the
yes,
right
yes.
nutritionist.
That would be the right one. Yes, because I had
a functional doctor, not a medical doctor.
a functional medicine doctor
Right.
will point people in the right direction. But the downside there, like I said, is it is self-paid. Functional medicine practitioners don't take insurances. So that's not an option for everyone. If I may mention, I do have a program. I put a program together, a 12-week health makeover that Linda has gone through. With a group of women who had all different challenges, came from different places. And in this program, what's in there is what I did, the process I had to develop, to go through, to identify. There was no process when I was sick. I had to really put all the bits and pieces together, find it out by myself. And it took forever because I made so many mistakes. I did something right, and then I made a mistake, and it stopped, and it threw me back. And long story short, finally I figured it out, and the healing began, and it works not just for me, but for everybody else.
Okay, well, that's we're at the top of the hour, and so everyone on screen, you can certainly see a link to Regina's website. She's coming out with another one in a few weeks' time, but this is the best place for you to reach out to her at this point. And Regina, I guess the last thing I want to ask you is, what does it feel like to be in the healthy state you're in right now?
Oh my gosh, there are no words for this. I mean, I now feel stronger, more vibrant, and excited about life and work than I did 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, I was just 40 something. I felt like I was on top of the world. But this now has given me a freedom and the ability to really do what I want, and that is ride this damn horse in in a competition. It takes so much physical strength and emotional strength to do that. I was never able to do it, and now I can. So it's like amazing how the body can heal itself when we give it a chance and when we support it in the right way. And aging has now become fun for me. It's like, yay, I can't wait what the next 20, 30 years bring.
Yeah, Regina,
It's not like, oh my God, getting older.
I don't know if you've got your chat window open, but Kathy just sent a message to everyone. So I'll read it for everyone. So thank you for this. I've had to give up gluten, sugar, and dairy altogether, along with a FODMAP and low fermentation diet over the last 15 years. Got rid of SIBO, S-I-B-O, with a functional doctor in the last 6 months, working on eliminating negative thinking. Regina, great session. We'll listen again. Thank you, T and Linda. Sending you positive thoughts, Linda. We'll go to your website, Regina.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So with that, any final comments from anyone?
It's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Regina. And I will go ahead and put this up on YouTube, and I'll send you a link to that so that you can get the file and do with it whatever you'd like.
Thank you so much. And I have changed my schedule a little, my writing schedule.
Oh, good.
So I can come on Thursdays. I can
Oh, well,
come
wonderful.
on the call.
I suspect there's going to be a lot of our regulars who aren't on today's call that are going to listen to this and have questions for you next time you're on the call. So
There's so much to it that and Brian, thank you so much for really putting everything into the professional words that it requires.
No,
I
thank
really
you
appreciate
for
everything
bringing
that
this.
you said.
You know what would be good
And
to, if we could do sometime, I think would be great, this idea of the tension management aspect of what Regina went through. Because a lot of times, again, you know, you can give someone a diagnosis, but you have to connect the dots with that between the mental and emotional.
oh, you're right.
And so if you give someone like the, you know, diagnosis of cancer, then automatically the mental and emotional is going to, you know, skyrocket. And so it's going to be like a roller coaster ride. So
That's
think
right.
about that in terms of their healing. And my mom said, even when she got her diagnosis of breast cancer and she was, she didn't have to do the chemo, but she did radiation. She was astounded because, you know, she's there in the United States. She was astounded, like, when she go for the treatment, and there's like vending machines that people will go to in between treatments and while they're waiting. Like, what are you putting in your body? You're going for chemo and radiation.
Right. Well, it's interesting because, you know, Brian, you are right. I wanted to use today's call for Regina to just talk about, pardon me, the subject matter. But life is tension management. And so there's a way that we can figure out how the change grid interacts with this. So if I said to you that if you were really living in a balanced physical, emotional, intellectual state, so your gut was in harmony and everything that comes from that is in harmony, well, you know, you'd be in the center of the change grid. But in order to get to the center of the change grid, as far as that health is concerned, there's work to be done. And that work requires people to step outside of that green circle and be aware of stuff that they might be uncomfortable becoming aware of. And they have to go out there and deliberately do things that need to be done. And they have to be thoughtful. You know, there's work to be done. But as we do the work that I'm squiggling around in right now, our success in that work makes our balanced, our inside the green circle, our peace and our harmony stronger and stronger. Yeah.
And like Regina said, there's a lot of ups and downs trying
Mhm.
to heal.
Yeah.
I now understand, in which Regina just said that she did quite a few things and then then steps
Yeah.
back and then steps forward and then
Yeah.
steps back. And to be able to understand that through tension management, I think would be a little bit of help.
Absolutely. Because think about the power of just what sleep does, right? Like sleep is
Yes.
the body's
Yeah.
ultimate reset button. Yet when I'm talking to people, oh, I don't have time for that, or they'll say something really ignorant, like I'll sleep when I'm died. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you
Mm.
definitely got that part right.
Oh, goodness.
So we can certainly do that if you guys want. I can look at the schedule and maybe next Thursday we can talk about the tension management aspects of what Regina's presented and just see how they really do overlay. Because our goal is always to help people understand that the more they understand about tension management, the more successful they're likely to be in whatever change process they want to undergo or need to undergo. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would have one thought to this. It's the most important step is when someone knows or maybe already has a diagnosis and they know they should do things.
Yep.
What's keeping them from doing it? I have someone like that right now, a young woman with being newly diagnosed with MS, very young.
Yeah.
And she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. Of course,
Then let me
addiction to what. So if that's the beginning for everyone who
Right.
wants
Mhm.
to
So let me throw something
create more
at that.
balance.
For all of you with a background in change works, this is just a reminder from what you guys have learned. We know that change doesn't occur until someone hits their threshold of activation. And so
Mhm.
if she understands intellectually what needs to be done and physically she's feeling whatever discomfort comes along with it, here's the bottom line truth. The truth is she does not find her current situation troublesome enough yet to bother doing anything definitive to change it. So
Mhm.
just like in the
Yeah.
world of addiction, people have to hit rock bottom. Maybe she needs to have her physical symptoms, whatever's going on that side of thing, become more painful, more
Mhm.
Yeah.
problematic before she's finally going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, when
And if
there's
I
a lot of
may,
patients like that, so.
mhm,
Yep, yep.
mhm.
Mhm.
If I may just add one comment, because I was in these shoes for many years, and I hit the threshold not just because of pain of myself, but I think I hit the threshold forever and for good when my mother got really sick with neuropathy and I saw her suffer. And I'm
Mhm.
so much like my mom. And that scared me.
Yeah,
So finally, I hit the threshold.
that's right. Because again, hitting the threshold and getting started is one thing, but Regina, maybe you've seen this with your clients and that the moment someone starts feeling any level of relief around whatever they've been experiencing,
Mhm.
they,
Yeah,
instead of saying like, I'm going to stick with it because it's working, they go like, I feel better,
oh,
so now I can let myself off the hook.
exactly.
So it's about
Mhm.
keeping yourself at that threshold as well, and having,
Keeping me
being
there.
able to look into a crystal ball and say, I do not want to have my mother's reality become my reality. That's a good
Mhm.
way to keep it front and center.
Oh yeah, every
Mhm.
day.
Yep.
Mhm. That's interesting. So we can see that outside of ourselves more so than we can see it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, well,
Interesting.
thank you all, everyone,
All
for
right.
being in on today's call. Thank you so much, Regina.
Thank you, T.
You're
Thank you
welcome. You're
very
welcome.
much. You,
Thank you.
everyone on the call. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay,
Okay,
so
cheers.
bye for now, everybody. Take care.
Bye.